Good morning, everybody. This is Zach at it again. I'm your host, Zach Cooley, and I have a local legend on the phone with me today from the Wythe Raceway and Mark IV Suzuki, Mr. Fred Brown. Thank you so much for talking to me this morning, Mr. Brown.
Well, the pleasure is mine.
Can you tell me a little bit about how and when and where you grew up?
Grew up in Wythe Raceway.
Okay.
And grew up on a dairy farm and been there basically in the Wythe area almost most of my life.
Uh-huh. So you're a lifelong Wythe Countian like me?
Right,
And we Wythe Countians take great pride in where we are from, don't we?
Yes, we're very fortunate. It's certainly a nice area to live in, and you see there's so many people sort of moving into Wythe County and the surrounding areas, so we are fortunate.
Mm-hmm. Now, at the time you were growing up, was Rural Retreat a very... now, my history is not so ready. I know at one point, Rural Retreat was the cabbage capital of the world, and I know that it was a very agriculturally industrious place. Was that applicable when you were growing up?
It was. I remember when we got running water and electricity, and that was for a grade A dairy, and then we used to raise cabbage also, and that we'd use horses to bring it out of the fields with a wagon. And I was fairly young, but that was a time in the I guess 30s and on up through the 60s or 50s, 60s. Cabbage was a big thing at Rural Retreat.
Mm-hmm. So let's get into how, why, and when you came to build the Wythe Raceway.
I had an old, I think it was a 47 Chevrolet that I raced in dirt tracks back in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And that was around, there were quite a few dirt tracks around. Motor Mile was dirt at that time. You had one over at Hillsville. Almost every little town might have a dirt track out somewhere in a field or something, and then they had a tendency to grow some. And I actually was B.C. Umberger is the man that really knew that I was driving like the race car, and he said, "Well, why don't we build a racetrack then?" And so that's how it became. With his suggestion, and we built it up on Pine Ridge, just right next to Interstate 81 and the exit 60 race, or exit rather. So we were very fortunate in the selection of, it was convenient for people to get, to the races.
Mm-hmm. And when was that?
We started in 1969 and we opened in August of 1970.
Hmm. So, 52 years now.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. Okay. In the beginning, when you first started having the events, so let's say in the early 70s, what were events like in those days, and how do they compare to the racing events that you have at the Raceway today?
Most of the people that competed in the race with different race cars or different types of race cars, most of them did the work themselves. A lot of them were mechanics. Back in the 60s and 70s and up into the 80s, most service stations, you might see a race car parked beside it, and then they'd work on it at night. And people did just, they were able to weld and they had to make the parts. There weren't too many. And now, basically, most cars now are, you buy the stuff and maybe bolt it together or something like that. But there's not as much, I guess, people just really, making do with what they had and making the race car out of it. And then the safety items are a whole lot different now. The seats are very full containment seats for a lot of the cars. The helmets are very good. They have specifications, and then the driver, the clothes, most of the clothes everyone wears are fireproof, gloves. So there's a lot of things that have changed from the safety standpoint. And also, you can buy cars or find people. There's still a few people that build their lot to their cars to race, and then others just can go out and be one of companies that sell race cars.
Okay. What do you believe that Wythe Raceway has brought uniquely into our community? And that may be somewhat of an elementary question, but.
And now, what is that?
I said, what do you believe that Wythe Raceway has uniquely brought to our community?
Well, when we started, basically, Wythe Raceway was the only place around that a lot of people went to an event on Saturday night. There wasn't much else to do. The drive-in theaters were still around, but and it was also a tremendous number of people from the surrounding area came to Wythe Raceway either as a spectator or as a competitor. And part of it, the track was bigger than any other track. It was high banked. It's about the same size as Bristol track. And being located only about a mile off of exit 60, it was convenient for people to come to. So there were all of those things go together. Plus, a lot of people enjoyed coming to stock car races.
Okay. And how would you say, as opposed to another racetrack, to entice someone to come to Wythe Raceway, how would an experience at Wythe Raceway be special versus going to another track?
Well, one thing is where it's constructed. When you're sitting up in the bleacher area of the grandstands, the only thing you can see are the mountains over towards Blaine County. You can't see any houses around it, and so the view, the sunset in the evening, the forest, all the trees, it's in a really unique location. Plus, when the races are over, you can get out, drive down to the service road, and, it's convenient to be there. And plus, it was, there were lots of bleachers, and a lot of tracks didn't have many bleachers, or you stood around, and they made a racetrack in a field. So this was sort of something just, I don't know how you'd really describe it. It was bigger, and we were very fortunate. The racing was excellent on it, and people liked it.
About how many racers do you currently have participating at the track, and how often do they participate?
Our race season usually has somewhere in mid-20, say 20 or 25 races per year. And then we have some cross-country motorcycle races that we do in the fall after the race season and utilize it for some other things also.
Okay, so there are events going on year-round at the raceway.
Somewhat.
Okay. Now, when I was approached to do this story, I heard a lot about another man named Jim Young. So can you tell me about him and what his contribution has been to Wythe Raceway?
Well, Jim was liked racing, and he was very interested in it. And I don't remember exactly when he became involved at Wythe Raceway, but it was sometime quite a few years ago. And he was like being like an official or referee, basically. He understood all the rules. He was able to talk to the drivers and sometimes temper flare. And he was good. He can walk up to two people that were having a discussion and suggest maybe the best thing they could do would be go on to their pits and get ready for next Saturday night. Mm-hmm. So he was just an excellent person, and with his knowledge, he had a vast knowledge of racing, and he really liked it. Really an excellent person, and he was an asset to the track and to everyone around. Everybody liked him, even when they were upset with something. They weren't upset with Jim.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like he was a mediator a lot of times.
Yeah, he could get things to where they weren't quite as bad. You know, the people he just had them, they were sort of agreed with him and went on and didn't cause any problems.
Of all your memories at Wythe Raceway, what would you consider to be among your greatest?
Among the what now? The memory?
Yes, your greatest memory.
Well, when we started, we went up. BC Umberger had land to join. We had some property together, and he's the one that really mentioned, well, we ought to just build a racetrack up here. And the area we had several ridges on them with trees, and if you'd have looked at it, you'd have said there's no way you can build a racetrack. And when we started, we had different pieces of equipment where we could bulldozers and rollers and different things like that to work on it. We had a lot of people from over at BC's farm that came and helped. It was a lot of physical work. We used all the trees that we cut out of it for the bleachers that we put up in the grandstand, or made the grandstand out of, and just everything sort of came together. We were just fortunate. We had a lot of people that were really good at doing. The people that ran the graders and all the equipment to make a track. It was we made a 75-foot or a 95-foot cut is how much we went down, and we had a ridge, and there was a hollow on each side of the ridge. So all we did was just take the equipment, and eventually we kept pushing it down, and it kept coming up, and pretty soon we had a half-mile racetrack. It was level there, and from where we'd worked on it about nine months, day in and day out.
And I would gather that even after 52 years, that the Raceway still experiences a lot of success and patronage.
Yes, we've been fortunate over the years to have a really good reputation. It's one of the few tracks that are banked very steeply. We had a sprint car that rented the track, and he exceeded 140 miles an hour on the racetrack.
Oh my.
So it gives you an idea. It's a high speed, it's wide, it stays smooth with the clay, and it's just everything was just worked out.
All right. Well, now I am wheelchair bound, and I've had cerebral palsy all my life, been bound to a wheelchair. So, and I've never been to Wythe Raceway. So I understand that if I wanted to come see a race or something, that there would be nice wheelchair access for me.
Yes, it would, and I think since you would be really interested in just seeing the whole everything that goes on. You'd be interested, say, in the racing, but then there's so many other facets. We have different food concessions, and that's in the infield. The infield is the inside of the racetrack is around 16 acres.
Okay.
The racetrack itself that the cars run on is 3.5 acres, and then there's about 14 acres left for the infield. So it's a big facility there, and then where we have an area where you could be, and you can see everything because it's up on the hill and you're looking down, and the tractor and trailers, all the haulers that they have now, you're looking over them, so you can see all of the race all of the time.
Wonderful. Okay. So you said you have about 20 to 25 races every year during the racing season. About how many participants do you have in those races?
They vary. Weather, there are a couple things. Weather determines a lot. If it's sometime, if it's real, we usually start sometime in April.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if it's 40 degrees, it's sort of uncomfortable, but we usually can go on and race and still have a decent crowd. But it's cold and the wind blows, so a nice winter evening or summer is, in the summer it's nice at night. It's not too hot. The sun goes down, so it works out. And then this year we stopped. Our last race was in end of September, and now here we are less than a month since we've been out, but it's already been some snow up at Retreat, and it's been down to 20 degrees, so we have a lot of pipes we have to drain. All the restrooms and things have to be drained so that the pipes don't burst over the winter. So it's when we close, that's why we close somewhere around the end of September.
Right. Now, when I was approached to do this story initially, it was back in July when the racing season was still going on. So one of my questions was, do you have any upcoming events at the Raceway? But I guess you're pretty well closed down for the winter then.
Oh, we do have one cross-country race. We have several hundred acres there, and we have motorcycle races that race through the woods, and then we utilize the racetrack where they can race around the track and then through the infield and back out into the woods. And we had one of these earlier, and we have 400 or 500 competitors at these events.
And when is this taking place?
The one is sometime in November. I don't remember the date, but sometime mid-November, I think. And then we always have one on the second week in October, and that's been since 1972. We started having motorcycle races also in 1972, and we continued up through all these years.
Okay. And the last question that I have, do you have any hopes or plans for the future of Wythe Raceway?
Well, I guess I do, because we've already started working on the rules to see if there are any that need to be updated or different things like that. And then we're also working on the schedule for next year. We've probably got close half of the season is already booked up. We have probably have a monster truck show, and we have some a lot of different events other than just racing at different times in the season.
Okay. Well, That's all the questions that I have. Is there anything that I did not cover that you'd like to share with me?
Well, I'll tell you, we'd like to, we'll certainly make you welcome if you will let us know, and so that you can see something, and it'll be interested in what you see. Is since you do a good job writing, we'd like to see what you think of, after you're there, and write up a little story about what's, you'll probably have some things that you didn't know happened, and so I think everyone would be interested in hearing your ideas from it, as being there at the Speedway.
Well, thank you for your kind words, and I would love to come out and visit you when the weather is warm. I appreciate your kind words about my writing, and I'm honored to have been chosen to be the one to speak with you. I know you've done a great deal for our community and for our county with the Raceway, and it's a great pleasure to talk with you. I remember many years ago, my dad was chief deputy, and he used to go to the Raceway and work some of the races years ago.
Well, that's certainly interesting. Good.
Yeah.
Well, we look forward to seeing you.
All right. Well, it's been wonderful talking to you, Mr. Brown, and thank you so very much.
And thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.